Hello and welcome to Patrick's Models and Transport. So, a Happy New Year. It's the 1st of January 2024 and just a quick update on what I did last night before the end of 2023 after I made the New Year video. So I made a video about when I cleaned the motor. But I was filming, then friends were sending in New Year greetings, videos, etc., and said video did not memorize because I have lots of photos in this telephone and I was supposed to be switching onto the digital camera, but that plan has backfired because the digital camera is a goner, and so I'm still on the mobile phone. And oops. So anyway, I'll just do a quick recap of what I did on this motor and the materials and the techniques I used. So this is very simple. This is a 3-pole motor. I think I'm putting a spot of back extra light on. I will see what we're doing. Okay, it's a 3-pole Jouef motor. We see that it has a drive. It has it's gear driven. So this gear, straight gear, goes and acts on this drive shaft here with a brass gear. The later models, this gear system was replaced with pulleys and a drive belt. We'll do a comparative review of the even with the other 04 OTA, the one with the open cab, which has the rubber belt drive. Okay, so back to the motor. First of all, this motor here, it's the commutator is in here. The motor was running quite smoothly, and I decided to remove the motor from the chassis. All you have to do is open these rectangular headed screws. You can see them, and they're not self-tapping. They're set into brass threads that are set into the chassis right there. In here in the chassis. So I released these and took this copper spring, retaining spring, off. But I didn't remove the motor from the chassis because you can see it's well set down. There's all sorts of cables or soldering. I didn't want to, cause extra work for nothing. So I cleaned the commutator using a spot of this is, you'll see on my dreadful handwriting, it's called CRC Ravvivante Elettrico. This is contact cleaning spray. Okay, it's in there, pink liquid, alcohol based. This is what remains of a spray can of, an aerosol can of contact cleaner that finished some time ago. And of course there was still some stuff in the bottom of the can. So I took my Swiss Army knife with the tin opener, or can opener if you're from the other side of the pond, and of course, it had no propellant gas left inside it, so the can was empty, but it still had some liquid in, and I gathered the liquid in here in this plastic jar, which it's a very good seal, and it doesn't evaporate, and I keep it in a cupboard in the shade on top of away from sunlight on top of the desk. So if you have a can of contact spray, an aerosol can that still has some stuff left in the bottom, but there's no propellant gas inside, don't just throw it away. Use a tin opener, punch some holes in, gather the liquid, and you can continue using it. So I used this. I put a couple of drops inside here in the top where the commutator is. I turned the motor around, cranked the motor around manually to clean the brushes and to remove any traces of brush dust and oxidation from the commutator. Then I tested it with this rather weak 9-volt battery, and you could already see that the motor was much better. So in fact, we'll just do a test right now. You'll see, compared to the previous videos when I was showing this motor going, it was a bit scratchy. Nice and silent and very smooth running. Then, after doing that, I did another thing. I lubricated, as I always do. Let's watch out, back the road. I lubricated the motor bearing, the motor bearings. So the front bearing, which is here, this one, and the rear bearing, which is here. So to do that, I use a mix of sewing machine oil. You'll see here it says oil/grease. A 50-50 mix of sewing machine oil and technical petroleum jelly. I never use straight sewing machine oil because there's a risk that it might, work its way along the motor shaft and it could come in contact with the brushes. And if you get oil on the brushes, then you burn out the motor and it's curtains. Okay, I'm a bit tired. I stayed up late last night. It was New Year. Okay, anyway, apart from that, so using this tool, which I always use, using a long needle, this is the tool I generally use, okay, not with the stopper on, but with there. This is a chemistry laboratory needle with a handle, which, and I have to say it, belonged to my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who was a chemistry master and deputy headmaster as well at St Roch Secondary School in Garngad, Glasgow, under the name, he was called Alexander Spears. Anyway, and using this, I put a micro drop of the mix of technical petroleum jelly and oil in there, so that it would be picked up, sucked in by the motor shaft or the bearing. And then being very, very, very careful, extra careful, I'm going to come closer to camera so that you see what I'm talking about. Let's see if I'm trying to do this thing. Oops, not in a very good position, but okay, right. How do you see this? Get you guys to see this. Okay, so I went in there and I put a spot on the rear bearing of the motor, which is in there, being very careful not to dirty the windings. And that has made the motor really, really smooth running. That's one of the best ways to lubricate a motor. Front and rear bearings. For example, on Hornby motors, on some of the Hornby motors or the triangle motors that then Hornby inherited, we actually have like some felt pads here on the front bearing that have to be wet with sewing machine oil to keep them smooth running, to lubricate them. All you need to do is a spot there and a spot there at the back in there, just a tiny spot, and that lubricates the motor nicely and the motor will run very, very well. So that's a recap of what I did last night, and you can see that the motor is running very well. I even tested it with a controller. This 9-volt battery is a bit tired, so I'm just gonna, of course now the wheels won't turn because the drive shaft is disconnected, so you can see how nice and smooth and quiet it is, because this was a quite rough sounding motor before we did this job. Lovely. Nice and quiet, nice and smooth running. In fact, when I tested it last night, this battery here is quite weak. The battery didn't have enough power, there was too much drag, and so on, and so now it goes really, really well. I'm a bit annoyed that I didn't manage to show you the video when I was doing the job, but that's it. Accidents happen, and okay, so there we go. That's us. Okay, so that's that for the moment. That's a recap. And today in the afternoon, I'm going to have, I'll film a second video for today. Another video where I'll actually do all the greasing. I'll grease all the axles and I'll oil the connection rods with sewing machine oil. I'll use technical petroleum jelly for the axles and pickups, etc., to grease everything. And this way, this locomotive will be ready for running. And we'll also do the comparative. Before doing the lubrication, I'll take the other 030, 040 TA locomotive out, take the body off, and we'll have a comparative. We'll compare the chassis. But it's practically an identical chassis. The motor's in the same position, but it has the pulley instead of the gears, instead of the gear. And the other one doesn't have the rear light for some reason. I don't know why they didn't fit the rear light. So in this case, this one has got front lighting and rear lighting. The other one hasn't. Probably I could even fit it if I wanted, but anyway. So a final note on taking the body off. This is very, very easy job to do. You see this, the front part of the smoke box sits on top of the bulb right there, and you just sit it on, and it's held on by 2 screws underneath, 2 brass screws, one there, and you screw it in position. So very simple. Another thing, and I mentioned this in the video last night, this locomotive here, in my opinion, it doesn't have the original weight. This loco here fell on the floor at one point in its past life, and you can see that the chimney has been glued on again. There's a slight mark, and it's not really very, very straight there. And I have an idea that this locomotive lost its original weight when that accident happened, because these 2 pieces of lead that are just glued in here, and one of them seems to have been cut pretty in a sort of very rough and ready way. And this locomotive here only weighs 105 grams. Looking up all the literature on websites, the stated weight of this locomotive is 190 grams. So we're close to 200 grams. In fact, I weighed it, the other one, the one with the open cab, which has got the original weight inside, so we have to think, and we'll do that with a comparative review. It's a single casting, the weight, the lead weight, here in the boiler and even in the water tanks, and it's not glued in. When you take the locomotive, when you take the body off, you can take it out. So I don't know what I'm going to do here. I'm very curious to this locomotive here only weighs 105 grams, so there's an 86 gram difference. Which 86 gram difference can influence tractive power? And so considering this is a shunting engine, and the other locomotive, the one with the open cabs, with the open cab, is a very, very, very good puller, a very good shunter. Apart from that slight issue, you know, that at the beginning the belt tends to slip and things like that, but then it picks up no problem. This one here with the gears should be even just as good without the issue of belt slippage. But having less weight, that's the problem. So I would like to recover these 86 grams somehow, either by adding extra weight here in the I've got tire weights here in the house, in my stocks, in my stores, but I don't really know how I could fit them in. I have to be careful because I don't want things to, you know, get in the road and things like that. We'll do some tests anyway. We'll have to see before we reassemble this locomotive how to solve this weight problem. But the main thing now is to get it going, finish the servicing, and then get it tested, and also do a running session, because we haven't been playing trains for quite a long time, and you know, it's playing trains causes addiction, and I'm beginning to to really need to have withdrawal symptoms from train running. Okay, very well. So that's enough for the moment. I'm away to get some lunch, and thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the video, and Happy New Year again. And subscribe to the channel. It's of great use, and click the notification bell. So cheerio, and see you next time shortly. Ciao, ciao.